The Lydian Spin with Lydia and Tim Dahl. How you doing, Tim?
I'm okay. A little tired. I had I passed out the last intro. I was in Barcelona. I was like I don't know what time it was for me, but I didn't even make
Oh,
it 10 minutes after lying down in the hotel. I had a great week in Spain and Portugal. And so now I'm in Berlin. Got a couple of days off. We play tomorrow, and I go to Prague on Thursday. Just busy here for a second.
hooking up with some of our Berlin friends, I hope.
Uh, that will probably be tomorrow. Right now, I'm kind of laying
Yeah.
low before the
Okay.
action starts. Yeah.
Well, and what are you doing? What are you performing out there?
So I just did Pulverize the Sound. That's Peter Evans, Mike Pride. Tomorrow I have some Berlin musicians, kind of this guy Utko, and it's kind of a noise thing. Then I go to Prague and I play with this Swiss accordion player, this woman, Tizia Zimmerman. It's not what you would expect. Let's just put it that way. So I got a bunch of shows with her, and I got a bunch of solo shows coming up. So they'll
Well,
keep me occupied until I fly back on election day, of course, the 5th.
gosh,
I'll be
yeah.
back in time. And then I go on tour with Makoto Kawabata from As the Mother's Temple. So I'm busy until for a stretch here.
And
Yeah.
this Sunday I'll be in Frenchtown, New Jersey with Keckler, Mr. Joseph Keckler, Sylvia Black, Kevin Shea, Matt Nelson, God knows what else.
What date is that?
That is this coming Sunday. Yeah, we're
Oh,
doing.
fun.
Yeah, Joseph has a residency once a month, bringing people to Frenchtown, which I hear is fabulous. So that's where
Cool.
we're going. Then I'll be back for a few days, and then I'll be out to the West Coast. So that's what we do. Now, have you heard about this stink bombing orca who's in captivity, who had a killer surprise for the crowd at SeaWorld in San Antonio? Well,
No.
the whale was swimming near the very edge of the see-through tank during one of the controversial Oceanarium show, and the humans were cheering on its miserable existence when the majestic creature presented a gift, an unimpeded view of it letting out a nasty greenish brown slurry of excrement blooming through the perfectly blue water. And as he dives away, and the crowd laughs it off, but not for long, because moments later, the orca comes back and dives in the water and splashes them all with fucking whale
Oh,
fecal.
classic.
Yeah, that's
Classic.
here. Cradle of Filth, as it's called. It was getting its revenge. Well, we've talked about it before that, there are whales are out there getting revenge on people.
Well, killer whales are no joke, and they're smart as shit. And yeah, you can't put a 30-foot mammal, a migratory 30-foot mammal, in a swimming pool without it being a
Well,
little pissed
look,
off.
States, I mean, all 18 captured orcas are in 3 SeaWorld parks. And this artificial environment is just too confined, unhygienic, socially isolating, and it's just ridiculous. So you know what? Suck my shit, as the orcas like to say.
Well, when they're in captivity, you notice their dorsal fins they go flaccid. They kind of hang, they slag over, and that's they say that's you don't really see that in the wild that often, and that's a byproduct of just them being put, in
Well,
solitary confinement, basically.
you as I are, as we are the animal lovers, this story was quite terrifying. Horrified mother listened as her daughter described being eaten by bears.
Oh boy.
Dying teenager gave hour-long commentary by phone saying, "Mom, it's agony. She brought her cubs. They're eating me." Flesh being gnawed off the bone, low menacing growls, and her daughter's blood-curdling screams for help. Olga Moskalova, 19, had been taking what began as a summer stroll with her stepfather, eastern Siberia,
Oh, okay.
before tragedy struck. This was a while ago, but still it bears repeating. The teen and her stepdad made their way alongside the water, and the brown bear launched a terrifying attack. And she managed to dodge the first vicious threat, but then it overpowered her stepfather, breaking his neck, smashing his skull, and killing him. And then the young Olga was able to call her mother while she was being eaten alive. Terrified.
What about this
Horror.
that torture chamber? I think it's in Tennessee. The torture chamber haunted house. They basically
Yeah.
no one can get minutes into it, and you have to sign waivers. I mean, I think you're just going to die if you go through it. But they're doing it again this year. I don't even know how
Well,
that works.
it's better than the like anti-abortion one that they have in Texas. Whatever. There's one of those as well.
Well, they
Well,
say they're definitely going to pull out your teeth. They're going to break your fingers. So who would sign
they're going
this
to
waiver?
pull out your teeth.
Yeah. No. This is like this haunted house is the most extreme one because it's all about consent. I don't know how they get away with it, but it's the most extreme one on the planet.
I mean, some people watch too many forensic shows and want to be part of it, I guess, at some point. Now, as something that look, birds, maybe, Mother Nature's revenge, we know climate change and all that, but birds are striking back now. Hundreds of proud parrots are flocking to the skyline like they're executing some kind of aerial raid in Argentina. And they have nowhere else to go because their natural habitat has been destroyed by deforestation. So the hillsides are disappearing, etc. But this one small town in Argentina, they don't know what to do against the parrots, super vastly superior bird power. There's 10 parrots for every human in a town of 5,000. So the exotic birds indiscriminately strike ground targets with barrages of poo everywhere, but they're also like chewing, transmission cord, power cords. They're just taking it back. That's it.
Yeah.
Like the invasion started a few years ago, and it's since mounting. So every summer, the parrots are migrating south to the mountainous regions of Patagonia for breeding. Yep. But in the fall and winter, they hunker down in another part of Argentina. So the residents have tried to deter the invaders, but nothing has worked. Blasting loud noises, using laser lights, but they just keep coming back because they have no homes to return to. And this, I think, is the future. If it's not going to be attacks from animals, well, Mother Nature's doing a pretty horrific job. And I don't know if I mentioned this on the last podcast, but I read a report that said every 2 or 3 days there's a flood in America somewhere. Yeah.
Okay. Is that, I guess that's higher stats than before, I assume.
Well, and not to mention how many bridges in New York City especially are ready to collapse because, why invest in infrastructure when you can invest in the bombing of infrastructure everywhere else?
What about this? They just discovered, or they determined a giant meteorite, 3.2 billion years ago, hit the ocean and basically turned the ocean into boiling water. It basically was like a fertilizer bomb. That would be something pretty dramatic. I mean, I think, because it was just so hot, it just boiled all the water.
Well, the scientists, always experimenting with new methods of creativity. One concept they have about trying to cool the planet is blowing 1 trillion pounds of diamond dust into the atmosphere as some kind of cooling agent, but it would cost so much and take so long that we better think of something else, let's face it.
That's pretty insane. So what about
I think we should just torpedo Diamond Dallas Page and gold dust into the atmosphere.
Well, gold dust, the wrestler, I'd be totally for. What about Liam Payne, this boy band person that jumped out the window?
Cocaine, which is not cocaine. Yeah.
Well, it could have been that. I mean, there was the rumors that it was somehow connected with Puff Daddy, and it was a hit. But
quite possibly. How about naming your child Bear Payne? He named his child Bear Payne. Well, that tells you what he's been suffering from. And let's face it, we know what happens to boy groups or girl groups or television kids or child stars. It's fucking tragic, and it keeps going on and on.
Did you like Trump's working at McDonald's publicity stunt?
Oh, what a fucking piece of shit. No. Get into a fucking thing. How about, did you like when he said that Harvey Weinstein's been schlonged by the Democrats? Schlonged. What a fucking idiot.
I've been out of the country, so I missed all these good
these good quotes. You're lucky. You're lucky about that because every day it's more demented grandpa diaper Donnie shit. So whatever.
Well, I mean, what else? I mean, there's witnesses for this. Vanessa Gilliam, the girl who was the military girl at Fort Hood, was it yeah, Fort Hood, Texas, that was beaten up by um, two soldiers, a guy and his girlfriend, and to death. And then, of course, he was saying, "Oh, this is a tragedy." And then he got really mad when he did an independent report. And he found out like women are getting basically fucked up all the time, like And he's like, "I don't like this. It makes us look bad," kind of thing. But he goes up there and he's like, "Oh, I'll pay for her funeral." And then he loses the election, and then he basically tells, was it what's the guy's name? Mark Mnuchin, is that his name? Who's the? It doesn't matter.
Well, one of
Whatever.
his underlings.
Yeah. He basically said, he goes, $60,000. That's too much for a fucking Mexican. That's what he actually said. And he goes, don't pay it, because he was so bitter that he lost. And this is all been this is all on record.
Well, I don't understand how any more, nonsense can come out of that dribbling grandpa's mouth. He's so incoherent. It makes no sense. And people are so brainwashed and just so stupid, I'll say the word, that they cannot see what's going on. And,
going back about that, the former CEO of Abercrombie and Fitch, he's being arrested. He's got his own what do they call them? Freak shows? No, freak offs. He's got his own freak offs.
Yeah, with male models. I mean, the world is a sex ghetto. This is why training needs to be taught to people how to defend themselves. How do you defend yourselves when you walk in and are given a drink that you don't know has been roofied, and then you're sprayed with body oil that's also roofied, and you're just trying to rub shoulders with, well, why are you doing that? Let's just say.
Yeah.
There's some places you just shouldn't go. But the Lydian Spin is not one of them, because here we are, and we're with Eugene Robinson today, and we'll talk all about all kinds of retribution, spoken word and otherwise. This is the Lydian Spin with Lydia Lunch, Timothy Seymour Dahl, and Eugene Stanley Robinson. Hello.
Hey, glad to see you.
Hey,
he's
back
once again.
Palo Alto, where are you, Tim?
Now in Berlin.
Oh, okay.
I just came from Spain, which was spectacular.
Nice. Where in Spain?
Barcelona and the Basque, up near Bilbao.
Oh man, I was just in Ondarroa, filming videos this summer. It was really phenomenal. And
so we'll be moving to Spain soon, Eugene, won't we?
I'm moving to Mijas. Andorra is like it takes a little time. It's like an hour north, and I was like there, and I thought, man, I should have bought a house here too. But I looked at the prices of houses in Basque Country, and they're like, it's like,
I'm not shitting around when I say I might need to be your tour guide, since I'm experienced in living in that fine country for 8 years.
Hey, the house will be finished. My move date is in June, so
my birthday. Happy birthday! Happy birthday! Yeah,
that's right.
I have to say though, the food was so good this time around in Spain. I couldn't believe how good it was. It was next level.
Yeah, that's going to be a problem, because I'm addicted to the food stuffs, But
Eugene, do you cook?
Yeah, man, I cook. I mean, I started because of the whole bodybuilding thing. I started cooking because I wanted things to be done a certain way. I used to be big into baking, and I had to stop eating what I was baking. I don't know. I used to be 260, 265. So, but I had to back off of that. I
don't remember you being twice my size, but then again, I don't remember being half your size either. So.
Well, I was. It was chemically aided, So
I think so was mine.
What were you baking? I mean, breads, pastries.
I was a big pie guy. Really.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
man.
let me tell you my secrets, because I make a lot of desserts, but I do the crumble. I just do fruit, no sugar, a little bit of oatmeal on top, using olive oil in the oatmeal, and a lot of spices. That's it.
Yep.
Or zucchini, lots of zucchini, just a little bit of everything else, a couple of chocolate chips.
Do you like savory pies?
I'll eat those. I didn't make them, but I pretty much want to. Outside of liver, I'll eat anything at this point.
Okay.
Well, I love liver, but that's a lady's thing. But you know what I made the other night was the elk shepherd's pie.
Nice. How was it?
Delish.
Where did you get the elk? Where did you get the elk from?
I have my connections. Come on.
All right. All right.
But lots of vegetables, just a bit of mashed potatoes on top, mashed potatoes and mashed cauliflower. So it was very delicious.
I wasn't into hunting for a bit.
I was thinking, go ahead.
No, I was trying to get wild boar, and I never succeeded in getting wild boar, but I actually did succeed in getting geese, and that was
that was you. You're the one they're complaining about.
Yeah, it was interesting. Eating food that you've killed is always interesting because you think about having murdered them every bite, which is not the relationship you have with food from the store, So
well, then it's not the relationship you have with most people you wouldn't mind murdering.
Yeah, yes, I wouldn't be eating them. So,
well,
did you ever find the buckshot in the meat? Did you ever find shotgun shrapnel?
It's like eating fish with bones in it. You got to be, you can't. You have to chew it in a different way so you don't crack your teeth. So,
but where'd you get the goose? You hunted a goose?
I was Eastern Nevada and went out into a ditch at 4 a.m, 5 a.m, covered myself with corn silks, and then waited till I heard them and ran out and shot them. And then the one that I shot sat up and looked at me. And I was with these country boys, and they were like, I was like, oh, it's alive. And they go, yeah, oh yeah, go break its neck. I go, I'm from Brooklyn. I'm breaking its neck. What do you get it? So he goes, no, don't. And it's too late. I grabbed my shotgun. I'm walking back toward the goose. And it's looking at me like, come on, bro. Come on. Let me slide. Right. And I was like, I'm not going to take you to the vet. You got to go. I put it up to its head. I blow its head off. So we take it back. And the kids are like, oh, they're back from hunting. So all these little kids, 7, 8-year-old kids run out to look. And they pull out Craig's goose, and they're happy. And Uncle Tom's goose, and they're happy. And then there's another guy, another Rick is happy. And then they uncover my goose. And they're like, because the head was blown off. So the kids were crying. I was like, yeah, thank you, Eugene, for a little dose of reality.
Eugene, being the big man you are, I would think you'd be hunting bigger game, but that's just my fantasy, I guess.
Well, you got to have something like wild boar had 11 months of a season in California. They're listed as a pest. And I ran into a surgeon who told me this was the best food he had ever eaten, boar. So I had deer. I would see deer out there all the time, but I had a fairly neutral feeling about deer. And there were no elk around here. So, right. So it was geese or wild boar. I mean, in Japan, they were hunting them with sharpened bamboo shafts. And one guy would hide in a hole and wait for the thing to run into its hidey hole and then pick the bamboo thing up at the last minute, and it would impale itself. But I'm not crawling in any holes.
No. And well, those things can be fucking rough as shit.
Yeah, if you pull up the bamboo thing too late, it's goring you, and if you pull it up too soon, it sees it and it runs off. So,
so one of the best wild boar experience I ever had with one of my good friends who I'm going to see this weekend. It's his 71st birthday, and he lives outside of Munich in Bavaria, and they have great wild boar there, and they really treat it well. But every time, we might have even talked about this. Every time they catch one, they have to check for radiation.
Oh, because of Chernobyl.
Because of Chernobyl. Yeah, I think we talked about that. And they eat the mushrooms there. Yes. But you get the real one, it's fucking so succulent and so badass.
Yeah. That's what the guy convinced me to do it. That's what, but I can't sneak up on a house cat, man, much less sneak up on a wild boar, So, and then I went out, it was like a comedy. I went out with a guy to go hunting, 5 a.m. It's raining. We're rooting around and I smell, I'm like 50 yards away from him. What is that? I go back, double back to find him. And he's in the brush smoking a cigar. I'm like, what do these things live by, it's like olfactory. What are you doing? He's like, oh, I didn't think. I go, oh man, like the day is literally shot and we've been out here an hour. It's like 6 a.m. So,
yeah,
it's a tough go.
What was the most dangerous interaction you've had with an animal? It could even be a dog. It could be any animal. Have you ever been in a situation where an animal was trying to defend itself, fuck you up, or you just always?
Well, now I know you don't read my Substack. You don't read my Substack because
Eugene. It's an interesting question because all the intros today are about dangerous animals attacking. So go ahead.
Well, no, obviously I haven't read that because obviously you have a story.
Yeah, I got attacked by a dog, pit bull, and it latched onto my hand, and I couldn't get it off. And the dog is like doing this, and I did something that, in human terms, would have made a lot of sense. I pulled out my knife and I brandished my knife, thinking that the dog would go, "Oh my God, he's got a knife. I'll let him go." But to a dog, it meant nothing, right? So then I go, I gotta stab this dog to get it off me. So then I go for the eye, but there was something so human about eyes that, all these self-defense classes where they gouge the eye, easier said than done. So I take the knife and I go to stab the dog's eye. Couldn't bring myself to do it at the last second. So I had to stab the dog in the neck and the body. That was totally fine for me. Somehow the eye bothered me. I stabbed it six times before it let go and ran off. And then I had to track it and, put it out of its misery. And it was a terrible day. I understood at that point why serial killers carry bodies around in trunks, because I wrapped it up, I shot it and then wrapped it up in a tarp, put it in the trunk. And as long as it was in the trunk, like I didn't have to think about it. It was like a terrible day.
Oh, wait,
And
did you shoot it or did you stab it or both?
both, well, it was wounded. And then I said, I'm not taking you to the same thing I told the goose. I'm not taking you to the vet, bro. This is, you got to go. So, yeah, it was blam, blam,
What
blam.
preceded the attack? I mean, first
Nothing.
of all, people
Not,
were unpredictable. Unpredictable.
I was breeding them, and I was amazed.
Oh,
Oh, it's just about the owner. It's just about, I had nursed this one back. It was a runt of the litter. Nursed it back. I didn't think it was ethical to sell it. Kept him, and just one day, just one
yeah.
day. I mean, my oldest kid at that point was probably a year old, and I was like, oh my, I couldn't even think about the possibility. I came in from work, came through the gate like I'd done hundreds of times before, and then it attacked,
They're
So
very unpredictable.
yeah, and you hear people say that, and before, as a previous owner, I'd go like, yeah, well, you don't know what you're talking about, but
I I
they
was
are they
staying with
do
a
know.
friend, and her pit bull went right after my friend's balls. He had to go to the hospital.
And he was the owner.
No, he was no, but the dog had been friendly until he smelled those great balls, and he just went for him, and that was
Yeah,
it.
yeah. So the thing is, so I'm with it in the trunk, and finally I go to the gym. The gym closes at midnight. I'm cruising around at midnight. I got to get rid of this thing, and so I find this dumpster like out of the way, and I've taken the garbage can that's got the tarp, that's got the animal in it, and I start to hoist it up over the edge of the dumpster, and I see a flash of light, right? And I pause, and there's some guy for no reason at all that I know, about 40 yards away, staring at me doing what I'm doing. Like the light is reflecting off of his glasses. So I lower the garbage can and just look at him like, two as easily as one, my friend. And he blasts off there, and I dump it, and then I pull out and, didn't think about it again. And I took a photograph of the animal because I knew that no one would believe me, So I took a photo and I ran
No
it.
one would believe that you killed a dog that bit you that you could not disengage from your hand. What the
Nah,
hell?
people are always like, people they think it's, that's why he was beating people up in England for a long time. They thought that the reputation was just like fictional. And so some guy,
That's why you did it.
well, he
Okay.
announces he was throwing ice at me and throwing cigarettes at me and screaming at me, and announced this before the fourth show where he was creating a disruption again. And I'm like looking down, stop it. Sorry, I got, I got it. It's a teachable moment. I got to show the guy, so.
I understand. Look, I've had to resort to brutal measures from the stage myself in the past.
Well, I respect the urge to find out, is it real or is it Memorex? But at this point now, I'm super glad to not have to make that point. I didn't travel 6,000 miles to beat up guys in Camden.
It was interesting because we had Sim Kane on the podcast last week, and
Yeah.
he remembers. I only remember the incident of when I out heckled somebody and they had their pants pulled down. But he
Yeah.
was he was at that show, and he goes, "Oh yeah, you were opening for Rollins band with spoken word a few times in like frat boy bars." I'm like, I guess they learned their lesson because you know how it is. Used to be a lot of fucking heckling at my early shows, and
Yeah.
I'd have to stage fake violence sometimes with
Yeah.
Richard
Yeah.
Kurt, and sometimes have to carry out some real violence, and always on drunk fucking men.
Well, it's weird. I beat up a guy for you in Belgium. You
That's
don't
right.
Yeah, yeah. And he had been known for doing this, and the women were semi-sympathetic. They said because they remembered you had just played there, and this guy just had a thing about women performers, and he was giving you a hard time, and you just said you got my mic is louder than yours, and you just shouted him down, and that was perfect. But he attempted to do some sort of variety of this to me, and he didn't read the signs well. It's like when I step off the stage, you pretty much need to capitulate immediately, right? Like immediately. There's no, because already I'm off the script at that point, right?
Yeah.
And I said to the guy, you're going to have to be quiet so I can finish your show, or I'll be forced to. I got really, really formal. I go, or I'll be forced to strike you. And the guy says to me, well, do what you got to do. And I'm like,
Oh,
man.
come on.
He looked like Charlie Brown when Charlie Brown gets hit by the line drive. His clothes were literally like in the air, and I didn't really expect to hit him that hard. But if I hit somebody versus somebody who doesn't train, it comes up from the foot, from the ankle, from the torque of the hip. It was just a slap, but that guy was airborne. And of
Well,
course,
and look, I want to justify and rectify a little bit of this talk about violence, because both you and I, we do have innate violent tendencies for different reasons, or maybe the same reason, and we have so much self-control that it's ridiculous.
Yep.
Even if it might be known that we have been prone occasionally to acts of violence, it's always justifiable. It's always justified. We're not just out
people
there
don't
punching random. We're not just out there fight clubbing.
Right. They don't give us credit for it being judicious. I played South by Southwest once, and some guy in the audience screams, "Buckwheat!" Hey, you know what? I got a sense of humor like anybody else, but this is a red flag. So I stopped. We were between songs, and I look at the guy and I said, "You realize I can see you, right?" And the guy gets suddenly dummies up, and I go, "I need to know now, because I'd rather deal with problems sooner than later. Is this going to continue to be a problem for you?" And he just nodded his head, and I go, "Good, we can finish the rest of the show." I mean, God love you. Say whatever you want, but if you're notifying me of your intent to make my art difficult, then we just get right to the go point. Right?
I hear you, because do not yell from the middle of the crowd, "Suck my dick," because I will crack your neck till you're down on your knees sucking your own dick. Just saying.
I almost put a guy in the hospital in Osaka, and he was he was really disrespect. There was some band of women were playing support for us, and they were jumping on stage when the women were playing and putting their backs to the women and joking and laughing. Osaka, they're country boys, And I tell the promoter, "You're gonna have problems if this continues. Could you please stop it?" And he just language thing. He didn't know what to say. Didn't know what to do. He did nothing. And so I come out on stage, first song, and the guy runs up to me and starts mock masturbating. And I was like, "That's it." The mic was down, and I did this wrestling move on him called the flying mare, which was a grand amplitude Greco-Roman throw in the air. The guy hits the ground, doesn't move. And at this point, I'm like, "Oh my God, I got to get out of Japan now because he's dead." But he eventually moved. So, hey, that teachable moment. I got to say, he asked for it. And the club owner asked for it. Everybody asked for that, It could have gone any other way.
We're not out there just ramming wild. It's like, no, our control is immense.
And I do that in the street as well, Like the last street fight I got into in Portland, Maine, the guy was cursing at me, racial invective. I'm like, "Buddy, you're just embarrassing yourself. Stop it. You're gonna get hurt." And he's throwing cans at me and he spit at me. Still nothing. And then finally, I did what that mafia enforcer that I wrote about in my memoir did to me. I said, "Listen, if you want to fight with me, you only have to do one thing." And he goes, "What's that?" I go, "Say one more word to me." Because the magic of that is, it's the easiest thing in the world for him at that point, just to be quiet. Be quiet.
Yeah.
But he just didn't have it in him. He goes, "Come on, bitch." And I was like, "Okay, that's it."
I thought the mafia thing was you only have to do one thing: kill me. Because if you don't,
don't. No, this guy was a mob enforcer, and he was having a roid rage. There was no percentage of me. He's like, "One more peep out of you, and I'll crack." And he was waving 100-pound plate in his hand like it was a paper plate. He goes, "I will crack your fucking skull." And of course, the wise guy in me wanted to say, "Peep, just to see what would happen, but I knew what
Right.
would happen.
Well, okay, now Eugene, here's where we have a slight difference because
Yep.
I've been known to stop a few street fights. Start some as maybe as well, but no, stop some because I really enjoy pretending to be the valiant justifier of the good and better for all man. But I just get off when I can interrupt some stupid controversy between two idiots and go in and just put a hand on their shoulder and just go, it's just not worth it, my friend.
Yeah.
It's just not worth it.
Yeah.
And they're like, wow, you're right. I'm like, yeah. And then I walk away with visions of, frying their eyeballs.
Yeah, I don't break stuff up too often because I've had the friends play the peacemaker and get stabbed to death. I'm like, nah, you guys want to kill yourself. As long as you leave me out of it, I'm fine, And
Well,
if it violates my sense of fair play, then I'll say something, right? If it's like 5 guys beating one guy, then I got to stop that. So
fair enough. The Cherry Grove Fire Island gay jazz brunch I used to play. You'd stay after the brunch is over, you're having some drinks, and the bar fights that would always happen were the lesbians. And the people that would break it up were the gay guys going, stop, and it would be full on dyke fights, basically. And it was like the playbook out of like high school or college where there would be like one lipstick lesbian that's literally drunk and basically getting the Bulldogs to come fucking fight each other over her. It was insane. But
violence is a natural human condition. It's just how you deal with it. How in this world, at this point in history, and all history behind us, and everything that has happened, and the rage and war that is in our blood, not stimulating us some kind of temporary madness occasionally. It's just whether you're judicial, whether you control it, or whether you're just out there playing fucking Fight Club.
Yeah. I've always kind of sort of faced the reality. I said, I imagine sometime before I die, I will have had to murder another human being. And my conditions, I'm just trying to be a realist, right? The conditions were always that I since it was something I would have to live with in perpetuity, that it'd be totally justifiable. So I spent my entire life, like kind of up to this point, looking for a justifiable case of homicide. And thus far, I've not had any. Nobody's pushed me to that point. There's a guy who came to see me do a reading in Texas, right? And I did that. I did a reading on that story I told about the dog. And the guy comes up to the merch table. He waits. I see him there in the shadows, kind of waiting for the last one. And then he comes up and said, I just lost my dog. And I go, that's terrible. And he goes, yeah.
Well, he's not in my trunk.
Yeah. He goes, the story really hit me. It hit me. I go, yeah. He goes, the wrong way. I go, okay, well, not everything's for everybody. He goes, so I went out to my truck and I got my gun and I was going to come back and give you a little taste of. And I go, whoa, you gun? He goes, yeah, I was going to get. And I pull up my shirt and in my waistband, I have a gun. I go, you mean a gun like this? And he's like, whoa, but I pull out my gun and I go, you've just threatened me with a gun. I'm brandishing a gun and I have yet to threaten you with it. And the guy was like trying to beg off. And at that point, he wanted to buy a book. And I go, no, fuck you. Your money's no good. Beat it. I'm not buying you. I'm on the road alone. You wander in threatening me with a gun in Texas. Nah. So he fucked off. I put the gun back and I sold to the next person online who was a little shaken because somebody came up when they saw me with the gun. And they're like, can I buy a book?
Again, you can't expect everyone to be as radically calm, cool, and collected as we can be at times, especially if there are.
Yeah. He went home and was not shot, much wiser than when he came. So for that, he got that for free, right?
Yeah. But Eugene, it's interesting about Texas. This happened to me, I think 2 years ago. The bouncers they have a sense. They're looking out for people who have guns because people do have guns. And someone came to our show and he was just acting weird with the girls, and he was drunk and he was just a little too aggressive. They've seen this before, and he was about to pull out a gun, and before he could even do it, he was tackled. They were honest. They've seen this. There's like a behavior or something, but that exists there. It's people.
Yeah, when I was bouncing, my boss one night told me, "Hey," they used to call me Mr. Clean because that's when my head was shaved. He said, "Hey, Mr. Clean." There's a guy on the.
I thought it was because your ass was always clean, at least as far as I can recollect.
Mr. Clean, there's a guy on the dance floor with a knife. Get it. And these were the days when that kind of news, but without hesitation, I jumped down. They had us sitting in lifeguard chairs. I jumped down out of the chair, go up to the guy, and I'd already figured out the key to surviving this was to stand super close to the guy, so any move would be noted. So I'm like you might stand close to a lover. I said, hey, I need to talk to you for a minute. And the guy's like, oh, what's the problem? I go, could we talk over here? And I wait for him to turn, and then he goes, and my hands are literally, I'm walking behind him, but my hands on his hands. I don't want him to reach for anything. And I pat him down. The guy's got nothing. And I said, well, have a nice night, sir. And that was the end of that. But guns would be hell to deal with in a club. So.
Yeah.
So where did the rumor that the guy had a knife come from?
I think somebody, maybe they saw a little clip on the side, in his pocket. Okay. This is before they were using metal detectors. Pocket knife, you can still kill somebody with a 3-inch knife. I don't know. I suspected halfway it was also my boss testing to see whether I would, kind of try to negotiate around having that. It's my job, and better me than, somebody who just came for a night of fun. I was expecting trouble. If you're there for a night of fun, you're not expecting trouble. So,
So is it true that close up, when it comes to weapons, a knife is a lot faster than a gun, right? Is that
100? They've got those tests that you can see where they give a 12-year-old girl a marker and say, go. And the cop tries to draw his gun. And as she runs at him, he starts backing up. So his brain can't process backing up and drawing. And they stop the drill 30 seconds in. And he's got marks all over his face. I would much rather face somebody with a gun than somebody with a knife. Not at all afraid of guns. Totally terrified of knives, which is why I carry one constantly. I mean, I sleep with
Eugene,
I sleep with one.
I have a bucket of knives beside my bed, which is why you're not
even beside the bed, clipped to the underwear. Clip to the underwear.
You got to be wearing something to have a clip to it.
Hey, that's the only reason why I might be wearing it, so I could clip it,
Isn't there like a kind of a Glasgow knife that's like popular or used in some of the nightlife streets?
I use a karambit. Because in the hand of a wrestler, it's super difficult. I'll show it to you. It's super difficult for it to get knocked out. So it's because the chair is interfering. So this is it. So this is what makes it super hard to knock out of your hand, right? So if you're so as a grappler, I can still strike, and I've done a screamer too, which is a Filipino knife thing. So I would not want to face anybody with a knife at any single point, so.
Have you ever come across brass knuckles?
Yeah, those got my ass kicked. Because the person who these 3 guys, I wrote about the memoir, these 3 guys were attacking me, and I thought they were really scared because I had my hand in my pocket. I go, yeah, I got him. And when I pulled out the knucks to hit one of the guys, they thought, oh, I thought it was a gun, and they were activated. Now they figured, hey, I get punched with the fist, get punched with that. Now that I see it, element of surprise gone, and I got in the hospital that night. So,
Jesus.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why my left ear is messed up. They tore the cartilage inside my ear with a broken bottle, and the doctor sewed it shut so that I barely have a hole here. And then grappling all the time, I'm starting to get a little cauliflower, so I can't put earbuds in there.
That's why you tape them to your head.
Yeah, that's what I use. That I need you to be quiet when I do I need this to do the show. So that's what's happening.
So why don't we talk about your show coming up, the 2 of you? I'm not going to be there. I wanted to be there, but I have another tour. But yes.
That's Lydia Lunch versus Eugene Robinson at the Great American Music Hall, San Francisco, November 9th. Doors at noon. Show goes down.
Style. Everybody's getting to bed early.
2 o'clock mark, and it's done by like 3. So get there and get there.
Yep. No, the first time I went to Great American Music Hall, the very first time ever, and somebody dragged me to see Bobby McFerrin.
Whoa, okay.
This is well before Don't Worry, Be Happy.
Sure. He was already a Grammy Award-winning jazz vocalist at that point.
Yep. So I'm glad to be able to rescue it from that horrifying memory because I didn't enjoy the
It's a
show.
great place. It's a beautiful
not even a
place. And
little bit.
remember, we did Retrovirus and Oxbow together not that long ago.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That was a great place to play.
While we both still had those bands, which neither of us do now because we have moved on.
Well, I got Bunuel, so it was a pretty effortless switch over to I mean, the Bunuel record was going to happen anyway, but the death of Oxbow.
Yeah, Bunuel is great. It's really
facilitated.
Cool. Well, and I got a million other things as well, so we just move on. You're going to read something.
Yes, I am. I got a lot of guys I know who I trained jujitsu with, who thought, oh, cool. Eugene seems to be a pretty sunny guy, pretty funny, sunny guy. I'm going to buy his memoir. And they all fell apart at the same point. I said, hey, what'd you think of the memoir? And they were like, I didn't make it past the one chapter. And I go, what chapter did you not make it by? And they said, well, the one I watched him get raped. And I was like, yeah, that's probably. And then I realized it's something, whether it's the novel, A Long Slow Screw, or the fight book, that it's like a seasoning that I like to put in. So if you're enjoying it as one thing, that I gotta have you look at you for a second. And there's a section I wanted to read, not from the memoir, because I want to do that one live, but the corollary in the fight book is a section, and I call it like it is, called I Killed a Man. And everybody enjoyed the fight book too. Fortunately, with the fight book, I put that chapter closer to the end so that you could stop reading when you got to it and you'd still feel like you understood the book. With the memoir, I put I watched him get raped like very early. So these guys have literally read like only 30 pages of the book before they had to tap it out and say, I can't. Because at that point, they think anything could happen. I have no idea what's going to happen. And they're uneasy, right? So.
Yeah, Eugene, we've never made it easy for anyone to swallow us.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, you want easy. Plenty of people that you can read that give you easy. I'm not going to give you easy, And I mean, the best part about this story is that it plays against type, right? Because people will the tendency is, oh, he's got some ghetto experience. This guy is an engineer at Apple, a white dude, who lived in the Mission. So it's not these are weird discontinuities that happen to people, just because they happen to be woken up at 4 o'clock in the morning, or as was the case in this case. So,
okay.
So I'm reading. So it's too long to get to the end. Just stop me when it seems appropriate. But the 13th chapter of Fight, or Everything I've Ever Wanted to Know Asking, but we're afraid to get asking for asking, is called I Killed a Man. And then it says some of the following names and places have been changed to protect the innocent and or those likely to be prosecuted, because he was still looking. The deal is that the guy was Latino. It was in the Mission. The guy who killed him was white, and it became a weird political issue. And the guy actually thought that the guy had become a celebrity chef, was celebrating his birthday, and it got weirdly political. And even without that, the guy said being in court across from the guy's 9-year-old daughter was pretty much torture. This is a guy who I used to train in jiu-jitsu. So he said, you learn at a certain point to pay attention to nuance, like when you hear a voice on the phone that sounds a little too eager, or in this case, morose. It was a guy whom I trained, a 30-something hipster who dug the fight game first as a spectator and then drawn along by temperament as a practitioner. He had bought a couple of mats, spread them all across his 10 by 10 foot second floor apartment, and a couple of times a week we'd roll through the basics, some catch wrestling arcana, some refinements of the Brazilian jiu-jitsu he had started to study, before we'd just go at it, smashing into the walls, jammed up against a couch, or off mat onto his uncarpeted floor. His unspoken goal, like any good student, was to ultimately kick my ass, an attempt I wholeheartedly supported him trying, since his rabid desire for comeuppance fueled my equally rabid desire to never be bested by someone who knew what the hell I knew well after I knew it. So, his neighbors complaining. It didn't matter. We went at it. But there was this call. His girlfriend had trained too, wisely, not with me, though, and had even scored a W by choke at a company Christmas party over an overlubed boss, who, after he had found out that she had studied, begged her to, quote, come on, show me what you got, close quote. At 5'5", she most certainly did, and he found himself waking up more than once that day, this time off of someone's floor. So I figured the call had everything to do with, the perils of Pauline and the rocky path of young love and whatnot. And I chuckled at, inadvisably, anyone asking me for relationship advice. I chuckled, sipped some tea, and read with great interest an item in the local paper that detailed a street scuffle that had turned violent. The story was pitched as a sideline to the continuing drumbeat of a story that you seem to read in weeklies all over America about gentrification, also known as what happens when poor folks live alongside not so poor folks who, drawn by the neighborhood's color, move in and start driving rents up. That's the public story. The real story is that there are enough poor folk around of very many colors to populate a lot of these neighborhoods a few times over. And so it goes. The lost tribes of near broke post-college types back to back with resentful locals. An uneasy peace seems to exist, except as the paper tells it, this one night it didn't. And a local who had, on the occasion of his 40th birthday, pulled his car up to the curb a few blocks from his home, in a general mood to party, sat car side and played his car radio as loud as it seemed like his car radio could be played at 1:30 in the morning. And at this point in the story, I started to curse the decline in American mores and manners. I decried the miserable me firstist get-overitis that affects even our most mundane interactions. As I read on, I found myself desiring some sort of resolution to what appeared to be unchecked assholism. And it arrived in the form of a nearby apartment resident who appeared on the scene and in the ensuing request to turn down said music, got into a fight that ended up leaving the offender dead. I turned the page, finished breakfast, and moved on. Next week or so, I go to my young charge's house for some training, and he's not much in the mood. And he and his girl are exchanging quick looks, and in a blurt, he tells me what you've already guessed at this point. It was him who had killed the guy. Fill in the details for me. I mean, the papers, did they get it right? There's me asking him. He goes, yeah, basically, I was sleeping. 1:30 in the morning, I sleep in a loft. And so I had to get out of the loft, put my clothes on, go downstairs, prop open the outside door, and go outside. I'm pretty easy going. You know, I'm not a hard on or nothing like that. I don't get in the fights usually, but he had played about 3 or 4 songs on the radio. You know how when you're sitting in your car, you could feel this guy's music in another car? Boom, boom, boom. It was like that, only closer. It was right under my window. I later found out that it was his 40th birthday. He'd gone out and whooped it up. He had cocaine on him, was having a good time. And I got nothing against somebody having a good time. He was just coming home. I think he was sobered up or something. The windows were all drawn, so he probably drove there trying to sober up. It was a cold night. It was February 5th, 2003. So I asked the guy, I said, shouting the fuck up out of your window, not an option? He goes, you know what? The first thing I did was go to my refrigerator and pull out some eggs. I went back to the window, looked out at his car, and I was going to throw the fucking egg, but I said to myself, you know what? That's only going to escalate the situation. He's drunk or whatever. He's in his car, you know, some beater. So I finally figured he knows where I live. This is ridiculous. Right out of my own window. So I put the eggs down and I go downstairs. My girlfriend's awake now and she's giving me a hard time about how loud the guy is. You know, there had been times before when this happened and she went down and I had to follow to keep her from kicking somebody's ass. She's tiny thing, but she's tough. So I figured this time I'm going to go because it's better because I'm the cooler head. I'm Mr. Nice Guy. I mean, I never get into fights. So I'll stop there because it just goes on and on. But, you know, he goes down. He says to the guy, turn the music down. The guy gets out of his car, sits on the hood, starts smoking a cigarette. And he says, you know, this irks him no end. He says, look, if you're not going to turn it down, I'm going to turn it down. He reaches into the guy's car to turn it down. And at that point, he's got that metallic taste in his mouth of blood and some kind of metal. He's figuring that he's been stabbed in the neck or the throat. In actual fact, the guy put his keys between his fingers, punched my dude. My dude arm drags him, kicks his legs out, takes his back, puts in a rear naked choke, and chokes him. But he's not a striker. And this is a little bit arcana. So he's concerned that if he lets this guy go, that he's going to be in an exchange of blows. He doesn't want to do that. So he cranks down on this choke. And I believe he crushed the guy's larynx.
Oh, boy.
So when he stands up, because the cops finally show up, he stands up. He sees him pulling the yellow sheet over the guy, and he goes, this doesn't look good. I mean, the guy, under normal circumstances, if it had been a competition, would have regained consciousness. This guy did not regain consciousness because of the crushed larynx. So it went to court. The court found him innocent. The papers were trying to build this case. Another guy I went to interview for the fight book. 2 gay guys were walking in the Western Addition, and they said, let's go mug those faggots. And what they didn't know is that one of the guys had been a Navy SEAL who had been Afghanistan, Gulf, and the guy ended up killing both of them with a knife. He had to go to prison because they said if you had the wherewithal to be able to take them, to disarm them, why don't you stop there? And the guy goes, I don't know, it was just automatic, and that was good enough for a 7-year term at
Well,
this soul
well,
class.
and you know what, Eugene? It's very pertinent to a situation that's going down now in New York City courts because there was a Marine on a subway,
Oh,
and
this
some
one.
dude was just
Yep.
harassing, and he put a chokehold on, just trying to neutralize the situation. And the guy did die, and he's in court now. Now, whether or not, now again, this is a white guy on a black guy. We're going to see how that's going to go down because you know how that goes down.
That's a tough one. I mean, he might have PTSD. He's definitely a Long Island kind of right winger kid.
But also, you have to realize there is some extreme violence going down on the New York City subways. People pushing people attacking with screwdrivers. How do you know when to neutralize? And also, how do you know when you are that strong, well-trained ex-Marine? You know, death is just a breath away. It's
Well,
just a shot
the thing is, I'm doing this.
kiss away. Yeah.
Well, I'm doing this 7 days a week, so I got a pretty good sense. I mean, I could comfortably choke people. I have comfortably choked people who just want to experience it into unconsciousness. You know, you choke them and their legs go out, and you just lay them down on the ground, and then they regain consciousness. You know, it's unless they have some underlying medical issue, they usually. But that scene with the guy in the subway, he held the dude way too long.
Way too long.
As always.
I mean,
like as always, when they're trying to neutralize a black man on the subway or in the street, this guy wasn't a cop, but close enough. He was a Marine. So what are you going to do? This is what happened.
Well, yeah, that is the Marine.
No, they don't seem to learn, and the lesson is not learned. The teaching has not worked.
Well, and also,
I think he's in trouble.
Yeah, and nobody. Look, a friend of mine, his girlfriend's sister was being beaten up by her boyfriend. And we got to go over and rescue my sister. So they go over to rescue the sister. And the guy, my friend, is small. He's 5'6", something like this. The boyfriend is like 6'2", 250. He's like, what the fuck you do? A fight breaks out. The abusive boyfriend gets stabbed and dies. My friend calls the cops. He's like, this big guy was clearly beating this woman up.
Yeah.
We came to defend her. So sorry, we got to arrest you. It'll probably get thrown out of court. In court, it hinged on one thing. When you left the house, what did you do? I grabbed my wallet. Anything else? My keys. Anything else? My knife. And then, whoa. You grabbed your. So if this ever happens to you in the future, say, I don't know where the knife came from, but the fact that he grabbed his keys, his wallet, and his knife was enough to establish involuntary manslaughter, 6 years at Attica. So, you know.
Well, look, I mean, and when, you know, we're not even going to get into it because we don't have enough time, but I'm going to take the other track where women, when they defend themselves against domestic violence, they often get more prison time than anybody else who would, because that's the way the courts are fucked. Because they don't expect a woman to be violent even after she's been beaten for fucking years. And that brings me to the project I want to propose with you, Eugene Stanley Robinson, the first, second, or third, is I think we need to do a DVD video for women. You have 4 daughters that have trained in martial arts. We need to make a DVD that teaches women very basic, minimal self-defense, psychological self-defense, verbal self-defense, and psychic self-defense, because it is important. The world is not perfect. It's not the way we want it to be. Shit happens, but there are preventative measures that can be taken before somebody has to die or go to prison.
Yep. Well, it's
Eugene.
Yeah.
Isn't there a specific move to the testicles that are taught female military in case of a rape, where it's like a twist and a rip? Or there's nothing like
Forget
that?
about that. Forget shit. This is not going to work. It's not going to work. There's something that I write about in the fight book with a prison, 52 blocks, a prison, jailhouse rock. It's a prison fighting system, the slap, grab, and roll. And that's legit. But it's not.
You've showed me that before.
Yeah, that's like, it's not like you're just trying to, like the Russian roulette of, I'm going to kick him in the nuts. And no, this is actual hands on the scrotum. You grab and all the
you rip, you roll, you tear, you rip, you roll.
Yeah, it's not, and you can do it through pants. You can do it through. It can be done. It's.
Well, I know why Tim's asking this, because once we were romping around and I just happened to accidentally flick. I'm talking flickety flick. His most sensitive area, to which felled him, and that was like the shortest match I've ever been in. Just saying. I didn't even mean to do it.
I've been. If I'm punched in the nuts, I've never.
This was flicked in the nuts.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, you're moving. That's in my mind almost a super lucky shot, because it's either glancing or it's.
You know how strong my middle finger is, motherfucker, for flicking.
Yeah. Well, hey. Well, I have a chapter in a book called "The One Finger Punch." And that's another That's right up the culo.
Well,
and that usually stops people right away.
Let's follow it up with a 1-inch punch, Bruce Lee. I mean,
that too.
I like to. And again, as you were saying earlier, the closer you are, the better it is.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
and this is the one. This is the 1-inch punch, which I practice all the time.
Actually, daughter number 3 has been staying with me, and she, she just graduated from college, and she, kids will tell you things that kill you. She tells me how her second year of college, she had almost gotten kidnapped, and they'd gone to a party or a club, she and her friends, and some older guy was there. He goes, "I'm going to this party in DC. I'm going to go to," and she says, "Okay, well, we'll ride with you," because they figure in their head, three of us against one. My sister, my daughter was a wrestling champ. Take a Brazilian jiu-jitsu, was a fighter, no problems. And as they pull to the end of the block, he slows a bit, and 2 friends of his appear, and they jump in the back. Yeah. And they're like, "We're going to get out now." And they're like, "No, you're not." And it got heavy. At one point, one of the guys is choking her friend in the back, and she yanks the hand loose. And had there not been traffic, there was traffic. Somebody stop, look for it. They all decide they break at the same time, and they're but and the guy is chasing. She had to hide under a semi for the guy to go. And every holiday I buy my daughters, all of them, some sort of weapons, So that and then of course, you just told me casually last night. I'm like, oh God, I'm glad that you told me this now.
Well, and the thing is, look, it's dealing with one man is one thing. Dealing with 2, 3, or a frat party is another fucking thing.
Well, that is, Spain has this whole thing with guns, so I'm thinking, maybe I should I don't want to sell my copious collection. So then I asked my kids, "Do you want them?" They're like, "No, Dad, we don't want them." And I was like, maybe that's bad fathering, me trying to force firearm. And then one of them doubled back to me and said, "Actually, Dad, I'll take it." And then I got weirded out because I go, "Do I really want to give one to somebody who wants one?"
Well, you know what? My attitude about it is every woman deserves to feel safe in their own house. And if that means having a gun and gun training, if that means having martial arts training, if that means having lighter fluid in a match or a bucket of knives, whatever it takes, a woman should feel safe in her own house. That's why we got to do this DVD together, my friend. No, DVD.
I'm game. Video. I'm game.
I know. It's important.
Yep.
It's important because there's many maneuvers that are not even about violence and might come to that, but there are many psychological maneuvers and also intuition. You have got to trust the gut immediately. You got to trust the fucking witch in you. You got to trust the witch.
I have a question. How do you think Puff Daddy didn't get the shit kicked out of him at some point statistically with all the fucking people at these fucking things? You wouldn't think someone would just step to that guy?
Moves everything around this place. It's a money, dollar bill, y'all.
Yeah, I think people, I remember when Jack Nicholson attacked that guy in traffic, and I was thinking, I'll kick Jack Nicholson's ass. And then I was thinking, well, would I? Well, I could, but it seems much better to sue Jack Nicholson than it is to beat him up in traffic. And I think with P. Diddy, I think, first of all, he was rolling because he had a security squad.
That's true.
And you're not going to outshoot them. But I put myself in a position where he was looking for a new editor-in-chief for Vibe. And he had been, when I was doing Code magazine, I'd been sniffing around. He was going to start some urban imprint, some publishing company. And they're like, "You guys should meet. You should know each other." And I was thrilled to the prospect because I know he beat up his former editor-in-chief, Keith Clinkscales. I was thrilled at the prospect.
Eugene, you could have stopped all this.
I was thrilled at the prospect of him taking a run at it. Kevin Powell already tried to fight me, the guy who was on the first season of what is that the Real Life, that MTV show, whatever that show, Real World.
Yeah, Real World.
Yeah, he was like, he goes like, "I'll see you again." I was like, "Hey man, I will pay for you to fly to where I am right now if you think that that's going to be a solution to your problems." And he never did.
Many people, so many women and men, children and adults are coming out about this all at once now that supposedly has been going on for like 25 years.
Yeah.
And 1,000 bottles of fucking oil, dosed with Rufinol. Yeah. And you walk in, you got to take this drink. You got to drink this drink or you're not coming in.
Yeah.
And, and Lottie fucking Dottie. But the thing is, the connective tissue between him and Epstein is fucking Elon Musk.
Yeah.
I don't know about that.
Yep.
Well, Do your homework.
Okay, I will.
Well, I've been the parties I've been to that were remotely like that. Usually I was there because somebody thought that they needed to have a bouncer. So I was unofficially the orgy bouncer. And I was like, that's, it was a.
Why don't you bounce these balls, motherfucker? That's right. Bounce the ball.
No, like, like the guy, like you could, like the
Hey,
person
better than being a fluffer, Eugene. You could have been there to be a fluffer. I mean,
then they give you the look. They give you the look. It's like Hollywood, right? So they give you the look and then the nod. And I was like, hey, bro, time for you to go. It's time to roll out. He goes, yeah, but I go, I'll tell you again. It's time to roll out. So that, and the second time was the warning. The first time was a notice. Second time was a warning. So yeah, it's
third time is a headlock and an ass kick. That's it. All I'm saying.
I don't know. I'm half naked. You're throwing a guy out of the party. What? I don't want to be tussling with a guy.
You're notorious for being half naked. Damn, you look good.
Yeah, well, this was ages ago. Now it's like,
oh yeah. Well, when you were 260 or 218, I don't know. Who's counting?
219. That's right. 219. Good for you.
Hey,
yeah, it's 219.
I know. Hey, I've tried to body slam you before. I couldn't lift that shit. Hell to the no. That's why I go low. You taught me go low. The last time we were wrestling, I dropped or fell to the floor. I was comfortable there, but you got a little bit like, oh, pick her up. I'm like, hey, leave me down here. Low center of gravity. Yeah. I like being low.
yeah, being on the floor.
I am the dark side of the ring.
Yeah. I remember when I was a kid, if you hit the ground first, you were considered to be the loser. But now, for me, with jiu-jitsu, I'm glad
you hit it.
Yeah, I'm fine there. So,
have you checked out any Dark Side of the Ring? It's one of my favorite activities to watch. About the dark side of wrestling. It's fantastic.
Oh no, I haven't seen.
It's heartbreaking. It's brutal. It's miserable. It's just so just so naughty.
The Vince McMahon poop story has
scared me so
many.
And he was always a piece of shit. And now he's shit on others.
Come on, I've done some crazy things.
It makes sense that fucking diaper Donnie Trump was hanging out beside him.
Yeah, that's mad. I mean, like, okay, I can understand the pooping, but then staying after that, it was like I just go, he's on a different level here.
I don't know if you saw this latest little chittle bit, but that they said, this could be just gossip, but what isn't, that Trump on Fox Network had to sit on a dark towel just in case he was pooping away.
That's
a man that so much shit comes out of his mouth, you got to expect something to come out of his motherfucking ass. Let's face that.
Eugene, what's your prediction? Who do you think's gonna win?
I want Kamala to win, but it's largely feeling to me like somebody else's problem since I'm leaving. But I want her to win for unhealthy reasons. And the single number one reason I want her to win, outside of a deep hatred of Trump, is that the next, how when they have the Oscars, they always have the camera on the table of guys who didn't win?
Yes.
I am envisioning the day after she's won, Hillary Clinton, Trump, and there's got to be a third person there who's just going to be beside themselves, just miserable beyond all measure. And that's what I'm living for. Just the idea.
I mean, it's so fucking ridiculous. The prosecutor against the felon, the fucking truth seeker, and the chronic fucking pathological demented grandpa liar. I mean, this country, this is why I fucking left when Bush stole the second election. So I get it.
The thing is,
because it was ridiculous.
Is she a truth seeker, though? I mean,
what's that?
Is she a truth seeker? I mean, there's those controversies about
you know what?
Those incarcerations.
Look, there's nobody who can tell as many lies as that motherfucker, so it doesn't matter.
That's true. That's
Anything
true.
The thing is, I mean, look, my oldest daughter pulled me aside, and she goes, "Yeah, it's all great that you got this house and that you're leaving it all and all, but I wish you would stop talking about that because the rest of us are fucking stuck on this ship." And I go, "No, you misunderstood. That place in Spain is a compound that's large enough for all of us to stay there forever without even stumbling over each other. I didn't buy that.
Our communes, and I'm going to be the number one guest because I'm signing up.
I didn't buy it for 3 people to live, and it's 8,000 plus square.
And those daughters ain't gonna go there because they don't know how cool it is to be in frickin' Spain. And
I've been showing them the pictures, and now they got it. But they were thinking like, "Oh, we got to stay in this toilet."
They'll come for summer. They'll come for swimming.
But Trump. I've hated Trump since the '70s because I was a New Yorker, so I remember him not letting black folk. We were looking for apartments.
Oh, come on! Hey, now the Central Park Five is suing him. because
Yeah.
he's still fucking talking
Good.
shit.
Good. I'm glad.
Well, how about this? It was Sebastian Greppo, the man who tours us and
Yep.
does my Facebook, who sent me, because I forgot, that the album I produced of Emilio Cubiero, and whenever, the late 80s and 90s, he found this clip on it that Emilio's like, and how do you find the defendant, Donald J. Trump? And I'm like, guilty as charged. So I was condemning, and I should have fucking taken him out right then. I just don't know.
Listen, I train with Trump guys, so I'm in MAGA world every day. And they have tempered my rage and my hate. And I've listened to and I understand their arguments and I understand why they're supporting.
Yeah, but they're still brainwashed with bullshit. And the thing is, you're dealing with a dawdling, lying, deceptive, bankrupting everything, not paying anybody.
Yeah.
Bullshit piece of motherfucking total shit.
They like to talk to me.
Whose fucking fellow Republicans are equally even more dangerous and insipid, because they stand there telling how much they hate him behind his back and then sucking his dick on fucking national TV. I say they all need to go down. I'm running for president of Vice. That's it. It's got to stop. This is the worst time in all history, or is it the best time in all of history? Because you know what? This is exactly a clownery I've been fucking complaining about since I opened my fucking mouth for the first time. And with that, I'm just going to say, Eugene Robinson and Lydia launch November 9th, Great American Music Hall. Doors at noon, show at 2. I dare you to come. If you don't, you missed it, son. This is the Lydian Spin with Lydia Lunch, Tim Bell, and Eugene Stanley Robinson. Oh, I got to say more, but you know, I'm going to have to pay for that.
And I will be armed.